Join me for our season finale to hear about a program that uses an individual's lived experience with mental illness and recovery to inspire hope and recovery in others living with mental illness. Next on Speak Your Mind. Welcome to Speak Your Mind. I'm Dr. Carolyn Phelps, licensed psychologist with the Human Development Center. It's hard to believe that we have come to the end of another season of our show, and we're going to end our 7th season with a wonderful story of hope. 2 weeks ago, in our discussion about resilience, I mentioned that often the most instructive lessons, the ones our hearts hear, come from the lived experience of others. When we hear that they've struggled and persevered, it gives us courage to persevere and the belief that we actually can persevere. Tonight, we're going to talk about a program that has taken that concept to heart in the form of peer recovery specialists. If you have questions about our topic, call them in now. Locally, dial 218-788-2844 or call toll-free at 1-877-307-8762. We'll be answering your questions throughout tonight's show. Joining me is Amanda Okech, Peer Support Specialist Supervisor and Director of the Keesler Wellness Center, an affiliate of Northland Counseling Center in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. And Dean Holm is a peer recovery specialist with the Human Development Center who inspires and empowers others with his skill and his lived experience with mental illness, chemical dependency, and recovery. Thanks so much to both of you for coming here. I really appreciate it. I just think I was so excited to talk about this topic. And I think, Amanda, a lot of people have not heard about this out there. I know a lot of professionals haven't heard about peer recovery specialists. So I think the best place for us to start would be for you to tell us and the viewing audience just about sort of what the concept of peer recovery specialist is.
Absolutely. The program, the concept is something that is unique in the sense that when you work in the mental health field, oftentimes you come across people that have gone to schools for many years. They have letters behind their name.
That's me. Yep.
And sometimes, even I've been in the field for 10 years, and I'm like, what does that letter mean for a lot of the mental health professionals? And so they come in with experience from the book and from working with clients for many, many years. And what's incredible about the peer recovery program is that to be a peer specialist, you yourself have to have lived that life of not only having a mental illness diagnosis, but then being able to battle each and every day, sometimes go through the struggles of hospitalization and loss due to having your mental illness, and you come out the other side where not only do you still maintain having to deal with the battle each and every day, but you are able to use your story and your skills to help others in ultimately creating this incredible world of hope that mental health professionals, regardless of how many letters they have behind their name, they oftentimes are not able to say the words, I know what you're going through. I've been there. And so among our team, we call that is your credentials. Those are your letters behind your name. Your mental illness diagnosis is your credentials to be a peer recovery specialist.
And what I would want to add to that, and the letters that are just as important as anybody else's letters.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. They bring to the table, when they get to the table and you have somebody that is struggling with mental illness symptoms, and you have your key people there, you might have your clinician, you might have your med provider, you might have your case manager, to have that peer specialist there. Not only does that bring a welcome perspective, but it brings that ability for that person to look across the table and instantly connect with somebody and be able to share more of their story in a way that's much more comforting than to the person that is staring at all these professionals. It's a human level here. This is an even playing field in the sense that I've been through what you've been through, and let's relate to that.
Well, and I think for me, just as being on the other side, being on the professional side of it, what I would see the value of also one of the many values of a peer recovery specialist is that it just cuts through even the barrier that maybe the client has or the person has about you don't understand me.
Yes.
Because that just removes that and takes that right away.
Yes, it does.
And has that been some of your experience?
Yeah,
Dean?
that has been my experience, and you know, it takes away that barrier. It removes it very quickly, and you know, my experience is the almost immediate reaction of hope. You recovered. You know, and they want to ask some questions. They want to know, you know, what mental illnesses you may have dealt with, what your story is, but then, you know, they immediately, you can just see their eyes light up. They have hope that, well, you know, this person has, you know, dealt with mental illness. This person has dealt with chemical dependency, and now he's sitting here with me, and you know, he's employed to work in this field, you know, and it immediately spawns hope in individuals.
And I think I like what you said about like that concept of even of recognition of being employed, because I know that there are a lot of people, you know, with mental illness who maybe have had to take a break from employment, or who are fearful that they won't be able to be employed. They're fearful about what it means to have a mental illness and to seek employment, and the degree to which they fit in or don't fit in. And not that you have to have a job that pays money to fit in by any means, but just seeing that, well, this is somebody who is clearly in recovery just by that very fact. Dean, you have such a beautiful story of your own to tell of mental illness and chemical dependency into recovery, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to share just a little bit about your own journey with us.
Oh yeah, I can do that. Starting at in my teenage years, I was battling depression, and didn't undiagnosed, you know, and my family didn't understand what I was going through, and that continued, you know, for many years, and sometimes on medication, sometimes off of medications, and most generally not really understanding what was going on. Finally, in my late teenage years, I ran into a very understanding doctor, general practitioner, who diagnosed my depression and started me on medications that really did help. I have gone up and down over the years. I've had to have medication changes. You know, medications sometimes don't continue to work for long periods of time. And I've been very fortunate, though, that throughout all of my difficulties with depression, I've been able to live a relatively normal life, you know. And the only real problem that I would say that arose out of my depression was self-medicating with alcohol, and
which is a real common experience for many people with depression or anxiety.
It is a very common experience, and it was my experience, and I found myself definitely drinking alcoholically, and suffered all of the consequences of that, you know. Financial consequences, family consequences, relationships, and really got to a physical health point where I was very ill from the drinking, and I finally became active in a peer support specialist based program, which we today think of most commonly as a 12-step program. And that was 21 years ago. I have not drank in 21 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So you've been kind of like you yourself sort of grew up through the peer recovery world, through your own recovery. And was that what inspired you to then become a peer recovery specialist?
That's exactly why I became a peer recovery specialist. I became a peer recovery specialist because I have seen the miracles that happen in 12-step recovery programs, which are peer recovery based programs. You know, our 12-step programs that we're most familiar with today, the vast majority of them started from 1930s on, but peer recovery has been around for hundreds of years. The Quakers very successfully started using peer recovery process in treating mental illness in the 1790s, and it was very successful.
I think they have a saying of going from bystanding to standing by, and I just really love that as that, like, even as a concept for us as a community of going from bystanding to standing by, and just standing with each other, shoulder to shoulder, really, with each other. We've been talking a lot about hope, which is one of my favorite topics, and a favorite topic for this show that we like to talk about a lot, which I understand is like one of the, like, there's a 5 pathways to recovery. Hope is one of them, but there's 4 others as well, including empowerment. Talk a little bit about how peer recovery specialists work to empower the people they're working with.
I've seen in our organization, we were able to implement this program right after the pilot program was introduced to the state of Minnesota back in '09. And so we took on the program in 2010. And when we did that, we had our original reservations as well of, okay, well, I was based out of a clubhouse program. I currently still am. And what we were seeing is that our clubhouse members, who are adults that themselves have mental illness, and they come in and receive programming of different sorts to help with their recovery, them themselves were already providing that peer piece. When somebody walked in the door and somebody was struggling, they were the first ones to empower, to reach out, to talk to that person around our group table. And so empowerment is so important, not only for the peer connection, but from an organizational standpoint. It helped us. I don't have the credentials to be a certified peer specialist, but I was able to see on our mental health team how the words, I understand what you're going through, and how the ability to bring hope in the way that a peer recovery specialist can do it is empowerment in a way that allows a person to all of a sudden realize that they are a person with a diagnosis versus a diagnosis. And you reduce, when you take away that those glasses of I'm a diagnosis, I'm mentally ill, and you take that away, that's empowerment at its finest. And I've never seen, I have a lot of experience in building programs and seeing mental health in a lot of different capacities, and the peer recovery, hands down, has been so transformative, or being able to transform the folks not only that are in the program, but even the people that we work alongside each and every day, our mental health professionals, our organization, our community, in ways that is empowering across the board.
Talk to us a little bit about how empowerment, the place of empowerment, and what you do to help empower others in your work, Dean.
Well, you know, it seems to me that so oftentimes in our struggles with mental illness, we come up against brick walls, and we come up against brick walls, and we come up against brick walls. And that gets to be very tiring, and it gets to be very debilitating. And to actually be able to work with somebody that is recovering, that has recovered from, you know, in my case, depression, it gives people that power in their lives. It empowers them to have the strength to move forward and to continue to move forward in their recovery.
I think that we all just sort of need to know and need to see with our own eyes people in our life who've gone there before us, right? Like, I need to know it's possible to do this. And what you were talking about is that hitting of the brick wall, that's a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. If you have any kind of chronic illness or any kind of recurring episodically recurring illness, it's a marathon, and that marathon can get you can feel like you're on the top of Lemon Drop Hill, or not going to make it to the top of Lemon Drop Hill. And I need to see that person in front of me who's making it to the top in order to have some belief, well, maybe if he can do it, I'm not the first person to do that. Maybe I can do some to do that as well. Choice is another pathway to recovery. Talk a little bit about choice and what you mean by that.
Sure, absolutely. From the perspective of an organizational standpoint, mental health systems have been able to change over the last few decades, even from the 80s and even to the 90s in the last 10, 15 years, where there is choice in service. And when you're able to provide choice to two people with the same diagnosis are going to have different paths on how they are going to, what they need in their recovery to succeed. And so when you're able to provide choice of programming, you're more likely to find folks that are able to find a path that works more for them based on what they need and not what the system says. When you enter the choice when it comes to the pathways for peer specialists, you're able to allow a person who is not telling you what to do, but helping them see all the choices that they have to make a change in their life. I would imagine when you're in the depths of symptoms, it's very difficult to see choice. You don't have hope. It's difficult to see what is out there, but having that peer specialist be able to be there and open your eyes to that is not only empowering, but they're able to see what they can choose. And Dean, I would imagine, with your experience as being a certified peer specialist, you've been able to inspire many people to see the choices that they have for their life, and versus saying, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. It's empowering them to choose.
Yeah, exactly. And they it also empowers them and feeds their hope when they have the choice to make their own decisions as to how they want to proceed with their treatment, and how they want to proceed down their pathway in life.
And I think that's so important too, because it's not a cookie cutter. It's not a one size fits all. Some people need lots of stops and starts, and we do this with everything. Nobody's perfect the first time out. Some people need, even if we think, and we talked earlier in the season, we had a specialist on about how to quit smoking, is that, it's like you quit for a while, and then you might go back to smoking, and then you quit for a while again, and then one day, 10 different treatments later, then it sticks. Or I'm not ready to quite go the next step yet. And it's like that can be an okay choice too that you make, there's not a calendar or a timeline that you're on.
Right, and choice, when you have choice, it eliminates resistance. Because when somebody's being told, this is what you need to do, this is how you're going to fix it, this is the pills you need to take, there's that automatic human response of, no, I'm not going to do that, or I don't want to be tied to this, and this is the only way I can live my life. I don't know if I can accept that, and being able to have choice and drive. You were in the driver's seat of your life, and you have this diagnosis that you personally have to deal with each and every day. You have choice in how you will find ways that work the best for you and the ones that don't work for you.
The recovery environment is a fourth pathway to recovery. Talk a little bit about what you mean by what is meant by recovery environment, Dean.
Well, my understanding of a recovery environment is that environment of positives, of the environment of positive change, of positive opportunity, And
Positive opportunity, I like that.
yeah,
That's very nice.
well, thank you. I also find that I need to walk side by side, like you were saying. I need to treat people with respect and treat people with love and treat people with that understanding that we're equals. We're equals. I'm not, a specialist, trying to treat them. We want an environment where we're walking side by side, not where I take any form of a leadership role whatsoever.
And the recovery environment, and you're talking about positives and positive opportunities. I know some people often at the beginning of their recovery journey find themselves, they don't necessarily have positive environments and may have, what I would refer to as friends that we don't really consider friendly, and that part of that is changing, becoming aware of what does your environment support your health and growth,
Right.
or does it support your illness? Right. And then what the challenges are about changing that, because I think that's really hard for people to have to say, I have to step away from you because you don't support my health and wellness.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes the stepping away, it might be stepping away from a partner, a spouse, stepping away from people that you've known your whole life, and that you've considered your family, whether biological or people that you've been grown up with, and being able to, I think that's really what's so incredibly important about peer recovery specialists, is because they have a way to help that person be able to identify and relate and share their stories of how, if they grew up in the same type of non-recovery focused environment, sharing those experiences of how did they do it, and what kept them driving to make those decisions that are, I would imagine, incredibly difficult to make, to end a relationship or move out of an environment that they've known, and with the hope that something else better is on the other end, and that they're worth it, that this person you're worth more than what you're seeing around you. And so when that light bulb can hit, that light bulb turns on, that what the difference is of a positive environment versus an unhealthy environment, that's where that role of peer recovery is so vital.
Now, I know that the fifth recovery path is spirituality. I remembered all of this because Dean taught me the acronym SHREC, and it's like, and I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, what's the S? What's the S? And you know what I kept thinking about, and I said, as Amanda was talking, I was thinking like, the S isn't stigma, it's not stigma. But having said that, it's not stigma. Tell us a little bit, because we're starting to run out of time now, a little bit about how you feel a peer recovery specialist helps decrease the stigma of mental illness.
I think when I think back on my own life and my experience, that I saw somebody that had what I wanted, and they were happy, and they were, positive, contributing members in society. And I could see that was a possibility for me. So instead of that being a stigma, that stigma was immediately erased and became a blessing. So it removes the stigma just immediately, because we can see that our struggles are truly beneficial to our life, and we can take those struggles and we can use them to help somebody else. If I'm sitting across the table or sitting next to somebody as a peer recovery specialist, they can see that in their future, their struggles can be also come to benefit somebody else.
And that is just a beautiful note for us to end on. I'm very sorry that we're out of time. I think that we have our 2 latest inductees into our Ambassadors of Hope, with Amanda, who's really been a leader in our state of bringing peer recovery specialist programs to our to organizations throughout our states, and obviously Dean, who is very clearly an ambassador of hope. Thanks so much for joining us. Don't forget to visit us on the web at speakyourmindonline.org, where you can binge watch all 126 episodes, and that should keep you busy until we return in the fall, because this is our final show for the season. But before we leave you tonight, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of my wonderful guests, including my guests who I had on tonight, my WDSC and HDC family, for believing that together we can transform how we think about mental illness, one story of hope at a time. And most of all, I want to thank each of you for watching, calling in questions, and importantly, carrying the message of hope forward. Until next season, and we will be back, I'm Dr. Carolyn Phelps. Thanks for watching, and good night.